And welcome to another Bangers and Classics podcast. And that features me, James Ruppert, and him, David Malloy. And what's David been up to?
Oh, David's been just bobbing and diving, ducking and weaving, walking into walls, that kind of thing. Spotting a couple of cars. I saw that Lotus XL again in the same driveway, so it obviously must belong to people who live in that house. And saw it from a different angle this time. I saw the derriere of it, and very pert it looked too. Looks in great condition. It really does. Also saw, there's a theme here, the back end of a nice blue Dodge Viper, a local filling station. Unfortunately, I was taking the turn off just before the filling station, so I didn't get a good view of the car as a whole. But yeah, it looked very nice too, and certainly something you don't see very often on the roads these days is a Viper. And then the same day I saw Willie's Jeep in Left Hand Drive. Looked as if it was on its way to a car show of some description. Looked really good condition too. So yeah, not seen a vast amount of classics, but the ones I've seen this week have been pretty good. Haven't seen any more broken down or lowered MX5 saw.
Oh, well, that's good. Um, I actually haven't seen one of my classic cars for a bit. I think I told you that my Baby Shark, the E21 3 Series, was going in for an MOT, and
Yep.
it did need some other stuff. And I think I last spoke to them a week ago, but I've sort of been busy and obviously too terrified to ring them. And my wife drove past the other day. She said, "Well, I didn't see a car outside, so it's either stolen or it's in lots of parts inside the garage. So I don't know. So if anybody sees it around, please let me know, or give me a report, send me a picture." Because I really don't want to know it. You know, it's sort of starting to sound expensive. I certainly need an exhaust, and I did authorise a new exhaust because it was starting to get rusty. The back box was rusty, so might as well do the whole thing. But yeah, so I haven't seen that for over a week, and I've got slight withdrawal symptoms. Although I did see quite a nice E30, a very early saloon, and the people in it, they got very excited because I was in my Mini, and so we all sort of smiled and waved at each other, and that was quite nice. It was quite a low speed as well. But otherwise, I've seen just a cornucopia. I've seen an awful lot of Morgans about. All the Morgans are tearing about, and I saw an MGC the other day, and
Yeah.
obviously I knew it was an MGC because of the bonnet bulge,
Mm.
so that was quite exciting. But yeah, and a sort of a Panthera-like kit car. So I've seen lots of sort of Morgan type stuff. But yeah, it definitely wasn't a real Panther, Panther Callista, but it was a kit car version of whatever that is. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, it could have been the J72 or the Lima, I suppose. There were three, I think, of those. Panzer did three sort of retro roadsters, plus, of course, the Bugatti-esque DeVille.
yeah.
I just want to clarify something. When you said you were in your Mini, I do hope you meant the car, James, and not an item of clothing.
Well, I don't like to talk about it, David, but I mean, I'm very comfortable in my own skin. I think is all I'd like to say about that. But there you go. Well, maybe I should say ADO numbers at people, but there you go for the strange people who listen to this. But actually, whilst I'm here, I will say that my dear friend Mark, who I've known for a very very long time, sent me his car spots. In fact, I told him about our spectacular podcast, and I think we were into like number 18 or 19 by then. And he's obviously clinically insane because he's listened to all of them. So on his journeys around in his when he's going to business meetings and stuff, he's actually listened to all of our podcasts and caught up.
Right.
But yeah, in a Waitrose car park, he sent me a picture of a Singer Chamois, which I would say is probably one of the rarest of the imps that you could ever see. And I think I sent you a picture, David. It
You
was
did.
riding on wolf race wheels as well, so it was like a proper 1970s job, where a young lad had bought it for a few £100 and put some nice wheels on it. Uh,
Hmm.
but certainly when I was younger, you actually did divide along the lines. You either had an imp or you had a mini. There was no crossover. And there was, I knew people who just had imps, and there was people like me who just had minis. But it was a nice spot, and we would encourage people who listen to this, if you want to send us cars that you've spotted, because you probably spot probably even better cars than we do. So we'd always like to see them and share them, and maybe we put them on social media. But yeah, thank you very much to Mark, who, oddly enough, when I'm on, he actually mutes the sound, but then he turns it up and listens to you, David. So it's quite strange behaviour, but I think
Very.
it's very understandable though.
I'm not so sure. He does this voluntarily, James. That's what I want to clarify that. He's not under any sort of force of compulsion to
No,
listen to the podcast.
no. He's very, very well off. He's independently wealthy. So,
No, I mean he's not being forced. There's some sort of cruel punishment by the judiciary to do this. It is a cruel and novel punishment being forced to listen to this
that's
podcast.
right. No, I mean he's probably in all sorts of other trouble when it comes to the law, but no, not when it comes to that.
Okay, talking about imps, I think I told you my aunt through marriage had an imp back in the day, and she used to work in Chelsea at Kings Road Tyres, and she made the mistake one day of taking the family dog, a beagle, who I later ruined. It's a long story. To work with her, and she left him in the car. Not a very nice thing to do, I don't think. But anyway, the dog had got his revenge by eating about half the dashboard. So I thought served her jolly well. Right, that was my opinion then. And if you're listening, I still think that way right now. So there you go. But yeah, the mini versus the imp debate. It's a strange one. I've never been a fan of either, really. There was a company called Bohanna Stables who did something with the imp, made a kit car called the Nymph. You may have heard of it. It was only, I think there were 47 or so built, and it could have been, with a bit of better luck, the British answer to the Miata or the Minimoke. I am told, I'm hoping to get official word on this one day, that Chrysler put in an order for X thousand body shells from Messrs. Bohanna and Stables. So individually very interesting characters. There's a lot to be said about them. Unfortunately, Chrysler USA decided to cease production of the Imp, and well, the order was never confirmed. So, and I think they only built about 46 or 47. Interesting little cars, though, and there are a few of them out on the roads of the UK. Well worth checking out if you see one. And on that note, I think we should probably take a quick break before we come back with Banger or Classic, and then hits the table. It's time for the Nations Cup draw, which is going to be conducted by Mr. Rupert.
Is it? Oh, right.
Apparently so, yes. It says here.
I didn't see that in my contract, but there you go.
You got to read the small print, including the invisible ink, old boy. Okay, we'll be back in a moment.
Jim lad, you be listening to Bangers and Classics. It's like pirate radio for cars. Gar.
Welcome back after that short break, and we're going to jump straight into this week's Banger or Classic. And we've chosen a fairly interesting car from the 90s. It's the BMW Z3. So, James, Banger or Classic?
Well, oddly enough, people I've spoken to who own them actually quite like them. But I sort of failed to see the point of them at the time, and I sort of haven't really fallen in love with them ever since. I find the styling really, really odd. I mean, it's all bonnet, which isn't a bad thing, but it just doesn't. It never looked right to me. I didn't mind the coupe, or the one with the big engine and stuff like that, and the Z one, but which I quite liked its odd looks. I thought the roof made it look good, but the basic Z3, I don't know, it just seemed all wrong. It was a path that BMW continued to go down of sometimes just making a design not any better than it really should be. And when you consider how elegant a lot of the BMWs have been over the years, it was just looks for me. The engines were okay, but not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think after the technological triumph that was the Z1, I think a lot of people expected really good things from the Z3. Maybe not to the same exotic recipe as the Z1, but I don't think it really delivered at all in that sense. A couple of interesting things about it. It was manufactured in the US of A. Yep. So it's a good old boy. And it also featured, and this is relevant to something we're going to talk about later, in a Bond film that appeared in GoldenEye, which was an entirely forgettable film as far as I'm concerned, but BMW Z3 is in it. To my mind, it's just not a very good car.
The running gear is good. The engines, as we know, are good. Styling just doesn't work for me either. The driver sits in a different postcode from the front wheels almost. The Z4, which I'll talk about in a minute, is the same. The styling, I think, on it was much more successful. It just doesn't particularly grab me as a sports car at all. It doesn't look great. Wet weather handling isn't brilliant either. A friend of mine had, and possibly still has, a 2.8, but he moved to an equally ill handling car in the Porsche 911. So what does he know about anything? And one of my mother's cousins, in spite of his venerability, also owns a Z3. He loves it, but to give him his due, he probably doesn't drive it much above 40 miles an hour. That's probably through pedestrian precincts and whatever, though, mind you. Having said that, I have to say it was a good idea, making an affordable roadster. Yeah, I'm all in favour of that. Building it in America, well, there are worse places to build things, but I just didn't think it worked as a whole. As a sports car, it's a good engine in search of a chassis, and the styling just doesn't work. So I'm going to have to call it a banger. Now, I owned a couple of Z4s. I've never owned a Z3, I have to say. And to an extent, the Z4 is tarred with the same brush. It handles okay in the dry, the Z4. In the wet, I found mine to be a liability. At modest speeds, the tail wanted to break away if the road surface wasn't great or if the camber of the road wasn't right. And I think that's really a serious flaw in a sports car, in my opinion. They should stick to the road better than that. But they have got great engines, and certainly in the case of the Z4, they look good. So I would probably not put the Z4 in the same category as the Z3. But there we go. So unfortunately, BMW, you have made some fine cars over the year, but I think the verdict of the jury here is that it's a banger. Would I be right in saying that, James?
Yeah, it is. It certainly is for the moment. But one day everything becomes a classic, even you and me.
Well, I don't know about me, James. I will say this about the Z3. Just thinking about it, in black, it actually can look okay. Black is the colour to have one in. I've seen a couple of black ones dotting around the place, and it does suit the lines better than some colours. A little aside, I used to own various Matra automobiles, and in the Matra Museum in Romorantin in France, there is a car called the P43. It's a prototype roadster, was never put into production. It almost looks a bit like a first styling proposal for the Z3. It's similar, it's not identical, but you can see commonalities, and it dates from around about the same period. So who knows? It may have been something to do with it, because there's rumours of Matra being involved in the Z1 project, which we won't go into because they're unsubstantiated and possibly never will be confirmed one way or the other. Yeah, if you want to see what the Z3 might have looked like had it been designed by a Frenchman, then go to the Matra Museum in Romorantin. Lots of other good stuff to see, but check out the P43. It's well worth seeing. Anyway, now, Mr. Ruppert, the Nations Cup draw. There are 16 teams in this. We've picked 16 teams to have given them sporty cars manufactured in their country. Have had to be creative with a couple of them. In every case, the car was manufactured in that country. So, for example, you might say, well, Finland has not actually produced any significant cars of its own, but the Valmet company has produced a number of cars for other people. The same goes for the Netherlands, where obviously the former DAF company produced Volvos, and I believe still does. So, Mr. Ruppert, what we need to do here is we've got 8 first-round games to play, and I need to have, first of all, 2 numbers from 1 to 16. We need 8 pairs of those. So if you give the numbers, I'll read out the draw.
Right. I mean, as everybody would like to, should pay attention here, is that the heavy lifting has been done by Mr. Malloy here, and I'm basically the glamorous assistant. So it is like the quiz of the week, almost, where David is Nicholas Parsons. And,
you're in East Anglia, James, isn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah, it's live from Norwich,
Yeah, it was live from Norwich.
It was, yeah.
You could win a mini metro most weeks.
Yeah, that was the only way they could get them off the shelves.
It was, wasn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yes, I can certainly do that. I do have a piece of paper. I've written down 16 numbers, and I can cross them off.
Right, okay.
If that's what you'd like me to do.
Please do.
So it's a bit like drawing balls out of a sock or something. But okay, what I would do. Number 10.
Number 10 is Romania,
and
Right.
they are represented by the Dacia 1310 Sport.
Fantastic. And they will play number 13.
Oh, now believe it or not, when I was doing this through a random number generator, I figured Scotland would get number 13. And miracles. It had to happen. It was meant to be. Scotland got number 13. And Scotland in this competition will be represented by the Talbot Sunbeam TI. So
Fantastic.
there we go.
Excellent
Right,
stuff.
first round game. Good
Good.
contest.
Yeah. Number 15.
Number 15 will be the Netherlands, and they are going to be represented by a car built in that country. That's the Volvo 480 ES.
Goodness me, that's a good car.
Mm.
And they'll be playing number 6.
Number 6 is Northern Ireland. So that's 2 of the home nations gone already.
Yeah.
And Northern Ireland will be represented, of course, by the DMC-12, the DeLorean DMC-12. I could have went for the Clan Clover, but I thought I'll be predictable and go for the DeLorean.
Right. Number 3.
Number 3 is the Czech Republic, and they are represented by, and I went for an older one here, the Skoda 130 Rapid Coupe.
Yeah, that's a good one. They'll play number 12.
And they will play Italy. So it's the Azzurri. And the Azzurri have got a strong lineup here. They're represented by the Fiat Strada, or if you prefer Ritmo, 130 TC.
Right. Okay, number 5.
Number 5 is France. And France have come out with all guns blazing with a Peugeot 309 GTI in the team.
Goodness me. And they're playing number 11.
It's France against England.
Whee.
Yes, and England has got, they've got a pretty decent lineup here. They've got the MG Maestro 2-litre EFI.
Right.
I thought it was a bit unfair to give the turbo because it's we're trying to make it normally aspirated cars where we can.
Yeah.
But yeah, still a pretty decent. It's a decent encounter, that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lou Crunch.
Yeah. Right. Number 1.
Number 1. It could so easily have been Germany, England, but it's going to be Germany at number 1, and they have the VW Polo GTI.
That's a good car. And they're playing number 14.
Number 14. That's the last of the home nations. That's Wales, and they have got the Davrian Dragon.
Ooh, goodness me.
Yeah, again, I could have went for, I think it was a Gilburn, but I decided, no, let's go for something a little bit more overtly sporty, and we'll go for Davrian Dragon.
Yeah.
Nice little car.
Yeah. Number 9.
Number 9 is Russia. Now, this is an interesting car. They have got the Lada Samara, wait for this, 2108-91, which I believe it exists. It's a rotary version of the Samara that was quite sporty. And, I don't think Mr. Putin would have entered that if it didn't have a chance of winning.
No. And, well, they can play number 16.
Ooh, Spain. And they're up against the Schmidt Hot Spaniards.
Yeah.
With the Seat Ibiza SXI and its Porsche-designed engine. Still no sign of that blooming poster, by the way.
No, well, that's right. I think that only exists in your head, David, but there you go. Right, number 4.
Number 4, we have Sweden. And Sweden have brought out the Saab 900 EMS. That's quite a strong car. Yeah,
it is, yeah. And they're playing number 7.
Number 7 is Austria, and it's a car built in that country. It's the Peugeot RCZ, so that's a nice car too. And we have 2 left. There's numbers 2. Numbers 2 and 8. Just who's going first? Number 2 or number 8? Who's got home advantage?
Who knows? Number 8.
Number 8 is Finland, and Finland again. It's a Finnish company Valmet build cars for lots of people. On this occasion, they're represented by the Opel Calibra, and they're playing Poland. And they have brought out, again, we're going back in time here. It's a car I don't think we saw in this country. It's the FSO Polonaise 1.5 Turbo.
Goodness me.
And those are the first round games. Now, I've worked out a schedule. So we've got 8 groups here. And the winner of round 1, the winner of group 1 plays group 8 in the next round. Winner of group 2 plays the winner of group 7. And then 3 plays 6 and 4 plays 5. And then we go on from there. Looks like it could be a good contest. Vote for the cars. And we're not going to make this Eurovision Song Contest with people voting for countries they like and dislike. Just vote for the cars, guys. That's all we're asking. And on that note, we will take another break. Bored, fed up, listless. Well, why not listen to bangers or classics? We can't promise to help your symptoms, but we'll get you at least half an hour closer to bedtime. We're back after that short break, and I think Mr. Ruppert is now going to talk to us about Bond cars that featured in the series of films starring the fictional spy by Ian Fleming. Over to you, Mr. Ruppert.
Well, it's very nice of you.
It's uncommonly nice of me, yeah.
Well, yeah, I always prefer it when you start and you do all the facts, David, and then I just do the sarcasm. But never mind. I mean, I rather liked his blower Bentley from the books, which unfortunately I don't think ever made it. Did it to film?
I don't think so.
Sadly, because that's a spectacular car, isn't it? I mean, it's it's so subtle for a spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's what we would expect from what the original character was, and I suppose it's quite strange in that in Doctor No he had an Alpine, didn't he? Which was I mean that certainly wasn't. I mean it wasn't even a Tiger, was it? It was a Sunbeam Alpine, and that was really quite a hairdressery car in a way, wasn't it, for the time?
Yeah, well, considering he was probably wearing a wig even then, Sean Connery as well. Not really appropriate for him to have a hairdressery car. What would you call him? Follically challenged, I believe they call it nowadays. Yes, but still not a bad actor, old Sean.
No, he's all right, wasn't he?
Yeah, we sail into history.
Well, that's right, and he was a real man. He had real jobs and did real stuff, didn't he? So he wasn't just some Hollywood fake.
No, he was a fairly controversial character in some ways, of course. But there we go. He wasn't perfect, and he didn't pretend to be in such as like. Anyway, so the Sunbeam Alpine. What about the DB5 though? Features in quite a few films.
It is, isn't it? But the more that you find out about the DB5 is that it's a very ordinary car. I know it looks good, but I don't think it's. And I say this as someone who hasn't driven one, but I've read enough and I've spoken to enough people who've had them, and they really they're sort of okay, but they're not it's all about the show rather than the go. I mean, there are better contemporary cars that maybe he could have had. Maybe he could have had one of those plastic Jensens.
Yeah,
at the time.
What you mean the P1800? No, that's not. I'm talking
CV.
nonsense here.
It was a CV something or other.
CV8. That's it.
Yeah, CV8.
Yeah. I was getting confused because Jensen built the early Volvo P1800s, of course,
didn't they? And they rusted to bits, didn't they?
Yeah, even though they weren't metal, I don't think. But there we go. Yeah. Well, obviously there was also the DBS. I think it was badged as a DBS V8. Though, if memory is right, I'm not sure it was a V8.
Yeah.
That was on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Actually, a very underrated Bond film, in my opinion.
Yes, that's right. He was very good in it, old thingamajig. And there was a stag in that as well, a stag not overheating at the time.
Yeah, special effects department, James.
Yeah.
That's magic of the movies. But yes. And what was it? Diana Rigg drove. You like that, obviously, Diana Rigg.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was one of my favourites. But
what was that Thunderbird she had?
I think you're right. Yes, I think it was.
I haven't researched this at all. Just going memory here. And of course, we come to the two Esprits, the Series 1 Esprit for The Spy Who Loved Me, which really was one of the things that got me interested in cars. Seeing that, it was just, blew my mind as a kid. Then you had the Turbo Esprit from For Your Eyes Only, which of course gets blown up because of the burglar alarm. Quite extreme burglar alarm. Totals the burglar, but it wrecks your car too. But of course, you had. I think it fell into second place. I think it was outshone by the 2CV in that film.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, for comedy effect and value.
Then you had another cracker. You had the Alpha GTV6 in Octopussy.
That's right. Yes, a lot of people get very excited about that. But,
I do too. I have to. Yeah. Wrong, bad color, not the right color for the car. It was a sort of brown shade of memory.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it didn't show it off to its best.
But still a striking looking car. And of course that engine, both the Brusco engine, just a miracle of engineering, I would describe it as. There's another Aston, James. In fact, two. You had the Volante, I think the Vantage Volante and the plain old fixed head Vantage, were both in the Living Daylights with Timothy Dalton.
Yeah.
I liked those. Nice, bluff, British sports cars. There's just something really lovely about
Oh
them.
yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But of course, if American cars are your poison, you had AMC Hornet that did the Astro Spiral in the Man with the Golden Gun.
That's right. And
And
we are contractually obliged to mention that, I think, because it's in your book every 6 podcasts. But there was a Mustang, wasn't there, in Diamonds Are Forever?
Yeah, I was just going to say the Mustang Mach 1.
Yeah.
That's where they had to reverse the film, I think, didn't they, to make the car?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it came out, they did not go into its right wheels and come out on its left or vice versa.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it is one of those things.
But we'll forgive them. We'll forgive them. And then you've got the BMW Z8, which is a bit of a yawn fest. I mean, nice looking car, but just no, it's just not up to the company, I'm afraid.
No.
It was in the world is not enough. And there's been other ones. There's been a couple of Astons that I didn't think were particularly nice looking in more recent years.
No.
Was what is now, I think, the DB11, the original I think it was called the DB10, though, wasn't it, originally?
Yeah.
And it appeared in God, what was that film called?
Yeah, that last one a couple of films ago.
It was
a film ago.
Before Skyfall. The film that was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I didn't particularly rate it anyway. So yeah, for me, it's a tough choice. I suppose I've just got to go for the Esprit S. Well, I would go for the Esprit S one, but thinking about it, I couldn't drive it because I'm too damn tall. So that rules it out. So I'm going to have to go for either the 2CV or the Vantage. Can I have both, please?
Yeah, I think you can.
That's very generous, James. Okay. No need to give that. I'll have both of those, thanks. But I mean, some great cars, and of course, your Renault 11, they get split in half in A View to a Kill.
That's right.
With what I think was possibly one of the best Bond themes by Duran Duran. I really liked that.
I would agree with that. Yeah, proper 80s stuff that was.
Yeah, but with John Barry co-composed that with him.
Yeah.
Which, I think that made all the difference. Gave it a bit of authenticity that some other Bond themes lacked. Barry himself, a very gifted composer up there with the likes of Ron Goodwin and Maurice Shaw, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there.
But there we have it. So, what are you going to go for, James? I went for the Vantage and the 2CV. What's your Bond car?
Well, I'll go for the Blower Bentley, which is off film. I suppose, it would be the DBS. I quite liked, actually, because I did drive one many years ago, and I quite liked it, even though it was a wreck. It was a £6,000 wreck, which maybe I should have bought at the time, but I think it bankrupted me.
Yeah. So just to complete this, if I were a secret agent, James, what do you reckon I should drive? And I'll do the same for you.
Well, there's a theme in this week's one, and I would like to see you, just for comedy value, squeeze into a Hillman Husky, which you could do all sorts of nefarious things in the back. You could spy on people and stuff, but it would just be the comedy value of seeing you get in and get out.
James, I'd be sitting in the back to drive the damn thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be no fun seat. Have to take it out. Yes, well, I'm going to be more kind to you. I'm going to give you the Mustang Mach 1.
Yeah,
I think that's your kind of car.
All right.
You just rock that look.
That's very kind of you.
Definitely, that's it. So there we go. We'll move on swiftly. Talk about some very small sports cars or sporty cars from different eras that all get with their own individual appeal, and that's the Bond Bug. There's a bit of a theme with Bond there. The Suzuki Cappuccino and the Smart Roadster Coupe. Any favourite of those, James? Any particular one you'd go for?
Well, Cappuccino, because I did have one for a while. It was part of a magazine spread for a few days. It was one of those things where I just sort of ended up with it, and it was like a very cute little thing. It was very nice to drive. It very light, and it looked very good. It was the sort of a 90s update of a Sprite, really. It's what, if British Lane was still going, it's the sort of car they should have made, but would never have made, because obviously the quality was far too good. Now, the Bond Bug, I like the idea of, but if anybody's got much experience of driving three-wheeled cars, and I've only done it a few times, but it is frankly terrifying. So
but you could have one with four wheels.
Oh, I know, absolutely. Yes, I think we've been there before. But just the design of it is spectacular, and I think we've spoken about that Top carriage design. But I do like the smart road tire. I have an awful lot of time for that. There's one that lives just down the road from me, and it burbles by. They must have a fancy exhaust on it, but it does look extremely good. And in a way, it's what a small little spritey car should be. And I think all these are quite good examples. But I think on a day-to-day basis, the Bond Bug might drive you mad. So it would either be the Cappuccino or Smart, I think.
Yeah. It's Cappuccino I couldn't fit in. It's a great little car, technologically very advanced for its time. It crams so many features into such a small car. Turbocharged engine, fuel injection. The roof is very, very clever. It's not a soft top; it's actually a removable hard top.
Yeah,
and the rear window section actually goes into the body.
Yeah,
which is, I think, it's a fantastically clever idea. But it's so much packed into it. It was a little bit too expensive. It was one of the few K cars to be sold here, just a bit too expensive. The Smart Roadster Coupe I can fit in because I've been in one. I've been in the Brabus version, and yeah, it's a hoot. Let's be honest, it's a hoot. 3-cylinder engine, turbocharged. It sounds like half a 911, and it grips the road pretty well. It's quite comfortable. There's not a massive amount of room in it, but I could fit in it, so that was a plus point. Only problem with those is the gearbox isn't the best. If they'd made them with a manual box, they could have sold them by the hotcake. I actually asked Mercedes once for an article I was doing how many were produced, and they wouldn't tell me. Very silly people, Mercedes, for not telling me that. Consider this a rebuke. Besides, I know the figure anyway. Glad it was somebody else. But yeah, it was a fantastic little car. Would I have one? Yes, possibly. Very possibly. I did think of buying one once. Then I thought, might look a bit silly, somebody, 6 foot odd driving one of those. It just might not be too clever. Bond Bug, I think it's a fun car. Hard to beat. I'd probably go for a 4-wheel one. Rather than a 3-wheel. The Webster Motor Company built 4-wheel versions, didn't build many of them. I think there were about 20 or so built, and there's a prototype for a later Bond. It's going to be called the Reliant Sprint. I think we have mentioned that before. It would have had 4 wheels, but you can get a 4-wheel Bond Bug, though it's called the WMC Bug rather than the Bond Bug, and well worth having. Very, very nice little cars, just full of character. You probably couldn't, and you probably wouldn't want to use them every day, but as a fun car, I think they're really hard to surpass. And to be fair, James, I think they're all great little cars.
They are.
In their own way, it's for me, it's what I can fit into and what I can drive, and probably I would go for the Smart Roadster Coupe as being the most practical. But if any of them end up in my garage and I could find a way of fitting into Cappuccino without too much discomfort, I'd be quite happy with that. You can't really go wrong with any of them, folks. They're all good. Anyway, Mr. Muppet, thank you as ever for your presence, your company this week, and thank you very much for listening to the podcast, the ramblings of the 2 aging lunatics. We're always glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks very much, David, for letting me show up. And see you all next week.
The court order says I've got to. And on that note, take care. Bye-bye.